Welcome back. As Black History Month comes to a close, we ask, what is the place in Black history in society today? And how do we go beyond the month to empower people to learn and inspire our heritage and history? Annisa Omar looks briefly at the Black History Month and how it came about.
Black History Month was established in the United States of America by the Harvard-educated African-American scholar Dr. Carter G. Woodson. In the United States, February has been recognized as Black History Month since 1926. It was thought that such a month was necessary in an effort to celebrate and acknowledge the achievements of African Americans in keeping alive their heritage, traditions and histories. In the United Kingdom, the month is celebrated in October. The first celebrations began in 1987. The introduction of Black History Month was facilitated by the former Greater London Council. The council had selected October because the month coincided with Marcus Garvey celebrations and the London Jubilee. The first month celebrations formed as part of the African Jubilee celebrations, organised by the London's Race Equality Unit. From the London boroughs, the interest in Black History Month soon spread to other cities like Bristol, Leeds, Manchester, Nottingham and Birmingham. With the advent of affordable travel and increased connectivity through the internet and telecommunications, Black diaspora links to their respective countries of origin are becoming stronger. Second and third generation Black communities have strong socio-economic roots in countries across the globe, such as the US and UK. As these generations aim to discover their own identities, the purpose and need of Black History Month may increase over time.
Which lives matter? Black lives matter!
There has been some debate as to whether or not Black History Month should be exclusive to those from African and Caribbean communities. Another part of the discussion is whether the month should be a thing of the past or an integral part of the UK national curriculum.
Joining me to discuss in the studio is Kelly Foster, who's a historian who launched the Black History Culture Archives project in London, and Tobi Oredein, editor and founder of Black Ballad, which looks at experiences of Black and mixed-race women here in Britain. On Skype, we have Nusrat Ladha, who's a writer and broadcaster on issues affecting the Black community. Welcome to all of you to the show. Good afternoon. Nusrat, do I have you on Skype?
Right now.
Hi, Nusrat.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. Nusrat, what do you mean by, what do we understand for Black history? And could you put it in, do you think it's a bit of a problematic term today?
I think when we look at Black history, we first have to look at what are Black people defined as. And even though we can look to dictionary terms such as the Cambridge Dictionary, which defines Black persons as relating or belonging to Africa, or typically people who live in Africa or whose family originally come from that, we find that it develops over time and it's subject to, it's very dynamic in labels. And so we find ourselves in that case being subjected to these differentiations over time. And even it's subject to self-identification. But it can be also very problematic in the sense that when we look at Black history and why some people consider it problematic or contentious is because there are some claims that it's quite exclusionary. Some people believe that the fact that we have a month dedicated to celebrating Black excellence, Black achievement, or even just any form of history relating to Black people is exclusionary. I mean, we've got people, for example, such as Morgan Freeman, who actually is a critic of this and it claims that actually it puts Black people and Black as being the other. So it's putting it as another section, and he contends that Black history is a part of the wider society of history, and so we shouldn't section it off as being something separate. And then the other problem is the perceptions of race and ethnicity. What constitutes Black people or Blackness is something that's not one monolithic block, and it's an expression that varies widely between peoples and depends largely on context. So for many other individuals and communities and countries, Black is also perceived as well as a derogatory term or outdated. So this is often subject to constant change. So
on the issue of outdating, constantly changing, no doubt, Kelly, sort of give us a sense, Kelly, as to whether you believe that the meaning of Black history today is becoming a bit of a problematic term.
Kelly. Sorry, it's meant for me,
yeah,
Kelly.
Yeah.
you know, the term black, as it refers to people of African descent, is come in many guises over the centuries. People of African descent, people who are darker than Europeans, have oftentimes been identified by the shade of their skin. So we kind of think of the term black as coming out of the 1960s and the Black is Beautiful movement, the Black Power movement. But actually that term was in use for a very long time. When you look at the records in the UK of baptisms and marriages in the church records in the 1500s and 1600s, black was a term that came up quite often when it referred to Africans who lived in London.
Tobi, a similar question to yourself. Black History Month, do you think it's relevant or do you think it's outdated?
I think it has its place and I think it has its relevance because it's a time for us to push our identity and our story out there. I mean, in October is when you hear about Mary Seacole much more, Walter Tull, and all these people, like black soldiers that fought in World War II, and you don't hear about them throughout the rest of the year. And it shouldn't take a month for us to hear these stories, but that's what we have at the moment. And I think if we got rid of it, then what would we have? What would we have for the mainstream to recognise us? What time would there be? So I think it has its place at the moment until we make it in, or we're integrated into our history is integrated into the mainstream.
Well, it's a multicultural society, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, when you look at the national curriculum and what kids learn, it doesn't seem very multicultural, their history. You know, we don't learn about, you know, the black Romans that helped civilise this country. We don't learn about the African Moors that helped Scotland have victory over England. We don't learn about that in this country and in schools. And the only time it seems to crop up is in Black History Month. And even then, it doesn't crop up in schools. It crops up in exhibitions and museums. So I do think it has its relevance. I do think it has its place at the moment.
Well, we're going to go now to look at a video which gives us a sense as to what people feel about what they're saying about this particular incident, especially to do with black history. And this has been done by Black Ballad itself. So let's take a look and see.
What does it mean to be British? A black British? I mean, I think it kind of means you have kind of two identities. You're British and you're from where your ancestors were from. Like, I think if you're black, you're not just, you can't be English because you have ancestors that were in another part of the world.
For me, being black British means to be very much assimilated into this country's way of thinking and doing and being.
I feel like even though you're black and this is probably like not your roots, but you were born here, so you should also feel a part of the community.
Our families have been here, you know, 40, 50 years, and they've helped to set up the economy as it is now. They've helped to build, you know, schools, education, you know, healthcare.
Someone who they know nothing other than being in England. Like, it's different to say, oh, my parents are from somewhere, but if your parents have lived here and they've lived here, I think that's black British because you don't know any other culture. That's all you know. So I think that would be.
I think that it shouldn't be a Black History Month. We don't have White History Month. It needs to be implemented into the curriculum, if you like, of our understanding of the world in the same way that white history is. It doesn't matter because history should be taught as a whole thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't be divided into subsections.
Because it's ridiculous, because it increases our understanding of human beings in the world.
I mean, black people have been in this country for a long time. They fought in the wars, they helped build this country, so they should be represented a bit more and more positively, definitely.
Day was celebrated this year, and they did a plethora of programs about war heroes and really interesting programs. They was on BBC One, BBC Two, and then they did a special program about the war efforts by black soldiers, and it was on BBC 4. Like, it was on the alternative, when not the alternative.
You know, so many children don't know anything at all about their history, and it's really, really sad. But we need more. I don't think it's a negative thing. We just need more of it.
I think it should be Black History all year round. I don't think it should just be once a year, but at the end of the day, anything that recognises the talents of Black people or promoting Black history is a great thing.
Interesting video there. Kelly, what did you think of that video and all those inspiring words from a lot of people on the streets?
Well, I think it's a great view about what the everyday man or woman, since there were a lot of women represented in that video, on road, think about Black History Month. And I think what came out especially is the need for wider history to be reflective of the diversity of the UK, and also recognition that on the other 11 months of the year, the contributions of people of African descent to the UK, to British identity, to British arts and culture, to the British Empire, is sadly neglected, whether it be in the curriculum or whether it be in the museums that are around the capital today.
Nusrat, we've got you on the line. Do you think the video was relevant? Did you find that what a lot of people on the streets had to say represents what's happening with Black history right now?
I know that generally when it comes to the idea of people having a say in terms of Black history and having the need for it to be taught in the curriculum and just have that general awareness being there is true, because we find that generally when we look at Black history, it's mainly taught from the perspective of Blacks as being inferior. So we have things like slavery, colonialism, and if that isn't taught and incorporated within the wider curriculum or even the history as a whole, you find that certain groups, particularly Black minorities, will start having this sense of inferiority complex. And it's something that has a major effect on how Blacks view themselves and even the perceptions of wider society. So it's needed to have that in order to ameliorate existing prejudices and misconceptions, and also amplify an aspect of pride in one's achievements and the contributions that we've made.
Tobi, you've seen the video, you understand its context. What do you make of it?
I think that the great thing about the video and actually Black History Month as a whole is that it's our stories told by us. I think sometimes when Black stories do creep into the mainstream, like Nazra said, they are through the white gaze. It's kind of, it seems like people that are in these positions of power seem to be very middle class, they seem to be very rich, and they seem to be very white. So our stories are told through their lenses. And that's what the video seeks to do, this is our story, this is how we feel about our history.
What about the UK context of what Black History Month stands for?
I think the good thing about Black History Month in terms of Black History Month in the UK is that it is done by a lot of Black voices. The exhibitions, the performances, the concerts, even like websites that you see, Black History Month is actually done by a lot of Black people around the UK, and I think that's why it helps for me. That's why I feel it's also important. It's really a time when we share our own stories through our own voices, and I think the video is just a small reflection of that.
Kelly, do you think that it's, for want of a better word, has it outlived its use, this October reiteration of Black History Month repeatedly every October? Do you think that we're living now in a multicultural society and it's not that relevant anymore?
Has it outlived its use? The short answer is no. If only all things were equal in the Black History Month, nor wasn't necessary. But it is necessary. There's a term that is often used to refer to the histories of people of African descent in the UK, and that's hidden histories. And I don't actually think they are hidden histories, they're ignored histories. And October is an opportunity for us to highlight those stories, to highlight those histories. An organisation like Black Cultural Archives, which is in Brixton, does a great job of bringing to the fore all year round Black histories in the UK. There is a great exhibition right now at the British Library called West Africa Word, Symbol, Song, which is about the West African literature and song. That was launched in October, and that's carrying on, I think, for another 3 months. There's another great exhibition at the Guildhall Art Library called No Colour Bar, Black British Art, which is art by Black artists over the past 40 years or so. So October gives us an opportunity to focus focus on all these things. We're lucky to have all 3 of those exhibitions going on at once, and they're going to continue outside of October as well. So the short answer to that is no. It still is necessary. It isn't outdated.
Nusrat, the national curriculum, as we know, many people will say it's out of date or it needs to be changed. In terms of Black History Month, what do you think are the challenges, and do you think that world history should not be controlled or suppressed or influenced by European historic views?
Yes, I do believe that world history should not be suppressed by Eurocentric ideas of what history is, at least from them. The reason being that when we hear European-centric view of history only from that lens, you don't really get to see or even hear of the untold voices of how it really happened. So I can even relate from when I was in school. I was told, we were learning about the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya, and I was told to write about it from the perspective of the colonizer. So you can kind of see that by doing that, by learning it through the colonizer's perspective, you forget the fact that in order for us to look at British history, we have to be honest. And if we only learn it from the Eurocentric point of view, it's disingenuous and it's not honest to the reality of what actually happened. There are challenges, however, in taking a more world history approach to history than looking at it from the European-centric point of view, because when we are studying world history and formulating it within the national curriculum, certain things will get chopped out. How do you decide what goes into the curriculum and what doesn't, for example? So there are those issues as well. But how the government have actually responded to it is also quite interesting, because I think in 2012 there was a petition done actually about the issue and also the need to have Black history incorporated, and it was established by Stephanie Pitter. And the reason and it gained, I think, about 10,000 signatures and received a reply from the government saying that it will be incorporated and they should learn about different cultures. But assuming that petition never went forward, a child would continue learning that their place in history or their position is one of inferiority. So in terms of those challenges, how do you teach it and what gets put in is something that we need to discuss, and even government policymakers need to look into that as well. But I don't agree with a Eurocentric path.
Let me ask Tobi. Tobi, do you agree with that, with what she's saying there, that Eurocentric Europeans have hijacked what is very much a black affair, a black history, and their own lens of pushing this, especially on the national curriculum? It's one that a lot of people don't subscribe to.
I think it goes beyond just Black History Month, actually. I think that for example, universities, they teach many subjects, history, English, and you have many subgenres of literature and many subgenres of history. And you have classes in African history, you have African literature, African-American literature, African-American history. And out of 18,500 lecturers, only 17 are Black women.
And why is that?
I don't teach at university. I don't know why that is, but that's the numbers. And I mean, if you only have 17 Black women across the country teaching about African stories, African American stories, Caribbean stories, Black women's writing, I mean, our story's not going to be told really through our own lenses. I mean, 17 women can't cover the hundreds of universities up and down the country. So I do believe that the Eurocentric lens does hijack our stories and our literature. And I think that Black History is a great month in terms of saying no.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and through their lens, especially to do with Black history?
It's very important because we know.
But on the issue of no, how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history.
It's very important because we live.
But on the issue of how important it is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history. How important is for Black. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
women's issues and Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
women's issues and Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
women's issues and Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
women's issues and Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
women's issues and Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
women's issues and how important is for Black
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
how important is for Black women's issues and
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history women's issues and but on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project
but how the
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
It's very important because we live.
how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of
but how the
how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and with Black history.
It's very important because we live.
but how the
But on the issue of how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
It's very important because we live.
with Black history.
but how the
But on the issue of how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
It's very important because we live.
with Black history.
but how the
But on the issue of how important is for Black Ballad to be able to project women's issues and
It's very important because we live.
with Black history through their lens, especially to do. But on the issue of how important is for Black